Okay, our next exercise is drawing a figure from the side, which I'm going to talk you through in just a second here. I've got some reference photos for faces because we'll also talk about the proportions of the face in a side view. And I'll show you a finished one from a past semester that I pulled out. Okay, so we're going to do again, we'll do a big head so we can get practice, and then you'll do a small head on your drawing. Okay, so there she is in profile with some shading. And we will go ahead and step by step draw that ourselves right now. So I'm going to go back to my drawing from just a minute ago where I did the high hip pose, and I put some shading and I fine-tuned her silhouette by just taking a darker pencil. I went with a 2B, and I just went around and added some shading and some more details. Okay, I haven't put a face on her yet. Time permitting, I'll see if I can put a face on her though for you guys. All right, let's talk about the profile. So I've drawn another plumb line. So I've got another nice straight line that's falling with gravity. And when we do the profile pose, I'm going to go ahead and start with the head. And for the head, don't overthink this yet. We'll come back to this, but we need to get some kind of a placeholder in here. If it helps you to think about it, she's going to be looking this way, by the way. She's going to look off to the side. If it helps you to think of it, her face is going to kind of generally be on an angle like that. That's her chin. Okay, so for some reason it reminds me of like a really deformed ice cream cone. Like if this was the ice cream and that was the cone. I don't know if that helps you, but that's kind of what is in my head when I'm trying to get this shape. It's quite wide here. The back of the head is bigger than I think people realize, and the neck is going to come down like this. Okay, so that gives you a sense of what we're working with. Now I realize that looks like an alien. Don't worry, we'll come back to it. But for now, we're just going to put that in as a placeholder. All right, I'm doing this next to my earlier drawing because I want to show you guys that the levels remain the same. So if we did our shoulders at 1.5, okay, shoulders at level 1.5, so in between level 1 and level 2, let me number this side for clarity. 6, 7, and down to 8, 9, and I even put 10. Okay, so switching to my HB. So the shoulders were at 1.5 before. Well, she turned to the side, but her shoulders didn't move. Okay, so we're going to keep her shoulders here at 1.5. And I'm going to put a placeholder for a shoulder, sort of an oval, and you'll notice that it's hanging off of the shoulder level, just like it did before. And that's right there. Now notice that it's to the right of the plumb line. I'm going to do that just so that everybody has a reference point of how far off to the side I'm going. Okay, so that's going to be her shoulder. Let's mark our other reference points. Her waist is going to be still at level 3. That's the way it always goes. Waist at 3. Okay, so we'll put it here. And what I'm going to do is I am going to determine that her waist is going to be about this wide, and it's going to be mostly in front of the plumb line. Let me get you guys a measurement on that. It's looking like I've got about 5/8 in front and like 1/8 behind the plumb line, if that helps you. Okay, these measurements are somewhat flexible and may be adjusted as we get a little further along. Okay, the next line that helps me visualize this is I've kind of got this sort of bikini line that I've roughed in. I do that because it helps me put the garments on the person if I understand sort of where that lives. It's sort of at this spot where the hip hits the leg. And we have that just a little bit above 4 is how we drew it on the plain standing pose. So I'll put it here. Okay, I'm going to put it here. And then we've got our crotch point. We said our crotch was going to be below level 4, but not too far below. So maybe something like that. Okay. Now, what I want you guys to do is watch me do this and then try it for yourself. Okay, because the shape I'm about to draw is a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird. What I'm going to draw is her torso. So I'm going to come and I'm going to put in her torso. And I'm just going to connect from the bottom of her neck over her chest, which feels like it's popping out a little bit. I may adjust that. And then we're going to come down around her crotch, and we have got to put a decent sized shape for her butt. Okay, so there's her butt, or what will become her butt. This scoops into her lower back, and then we're going to arch up and capture her shoulder. Okay, now let me refine this. Okay, that's my first shot at this. At this stage, no matter what, you're probably gonna have to step back and sort of look at it and decide, okay, does that look right? Does her butt need to be bigger? When I look at this, usually people don't have too much trouble getting something functional, but once in a while we need to give her a little bit more volume back here for her behind. Okay. A couple other things I want to point out. I'm going to put the TMI lines in here. In this view, they kind of look like that. Okay, and because if you think about the spine is bending, the rib cage is that way, the pelvis is this way. So that kind of helps us visualize what's going on with her internal anatomy. That means if you want to scoop it in a little bit for her stomach, because she's so hungry, we can scoop it in a little bit. And the other thing we're going to do is put the bust in. So the bust is going to be right, it basically ended a little bit below level 2, so something like that. So I'll go ahead and put the bust. At the apex was probably closer to level 2. So we can kind of create some sort of a shape like that. Okay, and that's going to give us a bust. Okay, I'm not unhappy with this. I think this is very workable. Just pause for a minute. Make sure that you guys have your vertical line about the same kind of positioning as where mine is. I should say too, I should have said this at the end of the earlier video, when you go back to your high hip pose, if something seems a little off about it, 9 times out of 10, what happened was people were putting as much hip on this side of the plumb line as on the other side, but guys, it's centered off of her spine. Okay, so this dashed line that I'm drawing, she's got to be half and half on either side of that dashed line. So if something looks a little funky on your lady, check if it's that. It does happen very frequently. Okay, back to our profile. Let me go ahead and put in the legs, because that's got to happen, so let's do it. I'm going to put the knee a little bit below 6, just like we have in the past, and I'll put it right on the line. And I'll put the ankle down here at 9, just like before. Okay, so she turned to the side, but her levels all stayed the same. So knee at 6 or a little bit below is how I like it. And then ankle is down here at 9. Okay, let's put a leg in place. From this front view, if you want to draw yourself that shape of like a bathing suit or bikini line, I find that really helpful. Now on this side view, I think it looks better to go a little higher than I had it on the other one. Otherwise it's kind of granny panties, which is fine. We don't, no shade to the granny panties, but we'll go a little higher so she's got a little bit more leg showing right there, and then we'll come on down. For this side view of the upper leg, it's in terms of contour, we're just kind of gently coming down, and we're actually going to go tip in just a little bit below the knee. And in the back, we just kind of want a gentle curve. For the side, this is going to be a little bit familiar because we did something similar here. This part of the leg is just going to go pretty much straight down. You'll see I've got a tiny bit of an angle. Once in a while, they hyperextend these legs. Should I do it that way for you guys? Let me show you what I mean. So you can kind of see here that her knee is sort of hyperextended back. Here's another one too from the past demos where you can see that this entire lower part of the leg is a little bit behind the vertical. For some reason today mine didn't quite shake out that way. I'm going to leave it alone. If you guys want to hyperextend her leg and put it a little bit back, you can. Okay, so dip in a little bit below the knee. Don't forget to give a nice volume right here. Pretty much at level 7 is the thickest part of her calf. And then we're going to bring it on down to make a nice ankle. At this point, we got to put a shoe. So this is the same process we did on the other pose, and I'll zoom in so you guys can see this a little more closely. If I can get my camera to stay. Okay. So put your ground in. This time I'm going to really exaggerate it because I know once in a while I've got somebody who wants to put crazy high shoes. So that's fine with me. I was telling my morning class that I've got all these cute heels from back when I wore heels, and I simply don't wear them anymore. The idea just is like, oh, there's no way. At some point I'll have to donate them. Okay, so there's your heel, there's the ball of your foot. Now you can see the angle here is a lot steeper than yesterday when I did this sort of more conventional shoe shape. So if we want to do a really, really high heel, I mean, guys, we can do really high if you want to. Should we do it? Should we make crazy, crazy high? Okay, so there's the heel, there's the ball of the foot. What's going to happen with this pose, the ball of the foot, by the way, is usually a tiny bit smaller than the heel, is we're just going to wrap around. So we got to go whoo around that heel and then boom down the foot, and then there's the toe, okay? And then we can kind of put, you can sort of think of it as like a sort of a cap shape or triangular almost. And then in this pose, we are definitely getting that arch of the top of the foot. So there's your crazy tall heel. If you want to try it, go for it. Okay, what do we need to do? Let's put some arms on her. So for the arm, I have kind of gotten into a habit of putting an arm sort of like this because it gives us a nice hand pose to hold a handbag. So I think we'll go ahead and do that. The elbow's at 3 as usual. We'll go ahead and put an elbow at 3. And once you've got your elbow and you've got your shoulder, we're going to connect from the armpit, which if you think about it, you know, the bust is sort of aiming towards the armpit, so we can kind of come from there. And then in the back, we're going to sort of hook over her shoulder and we'll come like that. Now this is probably shoulder blade back here, which I apologize for not having a good reference photo of a side view, but I think we're going to end up with something about like that. Okay, now for the front arm, let's put her wrist over here. Let me just double check that I'm getting about the same length for the upper arm and the lower arm. I think that'll work just fine. And we'll go ahead and put in the lower arm, a little bit thicker right close to the elbow, thinner closer to the wrist. And in this pose, we typically will see a little bit of a point for the elbow. Okay, so there is a side view arm, and I'll go ahead and add a hand. So let me give you a hand. It's going to look really similar to all my hands, except this time the pinky is pointing at us because we're looking at her from the side. So what that means is we might see a thumb, but it's going to poke out from behind. And then we can just go boop, 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 give her a little pinky, and then maybe her other fingers are just sort of straight out or what have you. Okay, look at photos. Take a photo of your own hands if you want to. If you want to have her holding a handbag, you could bend all of the fingers back like that. Okay. And then you guys also have the document handout that I put in Canvas that you can look at if you want to see more hand ideas. Oh, I forgot. I'm panning up because I forgot to put an ankle. Let me put a little ankle on her. I also put an ankle on this pose as well. Okay, back up, back up, back up. And at this point, guys, I think we're kind of okay body-wise with her. We are going to put a little shading. Let me put a little collarbone right here. The collarbones are sort of nice to capture. It kind of connects here towards the arm, so we can put in that little shape if you want to. And that you can do a little shading. I don't, you know, if you guys want to put some shading on here, fantastic. I encourage it because it looks really good in your portfolio. But I know today's a pretty heavy drawing day, so I'm okay if you shade your high hip pose and not shade this one. But it doesn't take very long to shade, and it is kind of nice for your portfolio. I will definitely recommend, though, if you're a sort of a sketchy drawer like me, where you've got a lot of lines by the time you're done, come in with a darker, softer pencil like a 2B or a 4B and just go ahead and refine and sort of pick your favorite line, play with line quality, use a really sharp pencil and see if you can just sort of polish up your drawing a little bit so that it looks really pretty in your portfolio. Okay, next video we're going to talk about profile face proportions. Oh, wait, hang on a sec. I didn't put the other leg in. Let me do that before I switch videos. So what we can do here is put in another leg. If you think about that knee swinging up, let's put it on the pendulum line, and maybe I'll put it here. So this is where it connects up there. We can just sort of aim for that same thing. Like I literally took this leg and spun it out, and you'll end up with a leg that you can play with, and that way you can do other stuff with this leg. So let's say I want to put the ankle, it could kind of go anywhere on that pendulum, right? Maybe I'll put it about here. Just make sure your two legs are about the same length, and we can come in, put the front of the leg, put the front of the leg, put the back of the leg, and guess what? You get to draw another fun shoe. If you could literally copy paste that shoe in there, you're good. But, and you could do that if you wanted to get some tracing paper and actually trace it and then repeat it. But you could also just draw it again. When I draw it again, I put a floor for myself because it helps me visualize what I'm trying to do. And then I can come in and just approach it again the same way. Okay. Looks like she's leaning up against a wall. That wasn't my intention, but it does kind of look like that. And because this is the instep, this part of the shoe is going to be pretty scooped right there. And something like that. Okay. Okay, that'll get us somewhere along where we need to be. Okay, next video we'll talk about faces.